As a professor of English and women's studies on the track to becoming a tenured radical, I cared about morality, justice, and compassion. Fervent for the worldviews of Freud, Hegel, Marx, and Darwin, I strove to stand with the disempowered. I valued morality. And I probably could have stomached Jesus and his little band of warriors if it were not for how other cultural forces buttressed the fierce triangle of God, patriarchy, and politics. Pat Robertson's quip from the 1992 Republican National Convention pushed me over the edge. He said, "Feminism encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians." My life at this time was happy, meaningful, and full. I was not seeking the Lord. My partner and I shared many vital interests: AIDS activism, children's health and literacy, golden retriever rescue, our Unitarian church, just to name a few. And even if you believe the ghost stories about gay and lesbian folks promulgated by Robertson and his ilk, it was hard to argue that my partner and I were anything but good citizens and caregivers. The GLBTQ community values hospitality and applies it with skill, sacrifice, and integrity. I honed the hospitality gifts that I use today as a pastor's wife in my queer community. I began researching the religious right and their politics of hatred against people like me. To do this, I began reading the Bible while looking for some Bible scholar to help me wade through this complex book. I took note that the Bible was an engaging literary display of every genre and trope and type. It had edgy poetry, deep and complex philosophy, and compelling narrative stories. It also embodied a worldview that I hated: sin, repentance, Sodom and Gomorrah. Absurd. At this time, the Promise Keepers came to town and parked their circus at the university. On my war against stupid, I wrote an article published in the local newspaper. It was 1997. The article generated many rejoinders, so many that I kept a Xerox box on each side of my desk, one for hate mail and one for fan mail. One letter I received defied my filing system. It was from the pastor of the Syracuse Reformed Presbyterian Church. It was a kind and inquiring letter. It encouraged me to explore the kind of questions that I admire. Ken did not argue with my article. Rather, he asked me to defend the presuppositions that undergirded it. In his letter, he described Jesus as someone who entered into history, not someone who emerged from it. I thought this was insane. I was a historical materialist, and I believed that people proceed from history and are shaped, for good or for ill, by the culture that molds them. I didn't know how to respond to his letter, so I threw it away. And later that night, I fished it out of the department's recycling bin and put it back on my desk, where it stared at me for a week, confronting me with the worldview divide that demanded a response. As a postmodern intellectual, I operated from a historical materialist worldview, but Christianity is a supernatural worldview. Ken's letter punctured the integrity of my research project without him even knowing it. If I was going to understand how this book, the Bible, got so many people off track, and how this man Jesus persuaded so many people to follow him, then I needed to understand Christianity as a supernatural idea. At this point in my life, the category of the supernatural was reserved for Stephen King things. Ken's God was holy and firm, yet full of mercy. Ken and Floy omitted two important steps in the rule book of how Christians should deal with a heathen like me. They did not share the gospel with me at that first dinner, and they did not invite me to church. Because of these omissions to the Christian rule book, I knew that when Ken extended his hand to me in friendship, it was safe to close my hand in. At a dinner gathering that my partner and I were hosting, my transgendered friend Jay cornered me in the kitchen. She put her large hand over mine and said, "Rosaria, this Bible reading is changing you." I felt exposed. I felt like I was going to throw up. I collapsed in the chair and I exhaled. But Jay, what if it's true? What if Jesus is a real and risen Lord? What if we are all in trouble? Jay exhaled deeply and sat down in the chair across from me. Her eyes looked wise, but her makeup made her look distorted to me for the first time. "Rosaria," she said, "I was a Presbyterian minister for 15 years. I prayed that God would heal me, but he didn't. If you want, I'll pray for you." The next day, when I returned home from work, I found 2 large milk crates spilling over with theological books, Jay's books. She was giving them to me. In Calvin's Institutes, in the margins of the exposition of the book of Romans, in Jay's handwriting was a warning: "Watch Romans 1. This is where I will fall." Romans 1, 21 to 26 suddenly looked like the table of contents of my life. So, and we did. We became friends. And it wasn't quick. I remember someone saying, "Wow, that's great that Ken, witnessed to you for, wow, how many weeks did it take?" Yeah, weeks? Years. And so I think that as Christians, we have the fortitude to be good friends, to genuinely be good friends to folks outside of our church community. And I'm grateful that my readers have seen that this is not a book about conversion from homosexuality to heterosexuality, because you know what? That is just too small of a story. All right, that is not worth me leaving my husband and kids in Virginia and getting on a plane and wearing something that isn't my usual homeschool mom garb, and you know what I'm saying. It's too small. It's too small. Who is Jesus? What price did he pay? Who knows the depth of his love? We need to focus more on that, and focus also on, as we're meeting people, that we should not give up on people. We should not. Ken Smith did not take me at my word when I said I'm a lesbian. He said, "Uh-huh." That didn't faze him. That doesn't mean that he was dismissing my struggle. Not at all. Not even a little bit. But that he chose to see me as a child of God and to proceed from there.